Hey guys, this is a framing chisel and this is a slick. And after this video, you'll never confuse the two again. So this is a framing chisel. This is used for bulk wood removal and mortise. So you can see you have a ring back here, and that's because this chisel is going to be used with a hammer or a mallet, something that you're going to be using to hit the chisel against the wood so that your bevel actually removes the material. And that's what this mushrooming is back over here. So I've had this chisel for a couple years, and you can see that's the only damage that I've had. Another interesting thing is that this neck is pretty thick. So these socket chisels are ideal for striking chisels. There's no chance that this socket is going to come out of line with the bevel. As you hit it, all your force goes directly forward. Some chisels are constructed differently. You'll find these in two different forms, a socket chisel or a tang chisel. Tang just means that instead of the wood coming inside the socket over here, there is a tang actually that goes inside the wood, and they both work perfectly fine. Another thing to consider or to think about is the bevel. So if you're going to be working on softwoods, your bevel should be 25 degrees with a secondary bevel of around 27 degrees. If you're using it for hardwoods, you're going to change that by 5 degrees, meaning you're going to do a bevel of 30 degrees with a secondary bevel of 32 degrees. And that is a framing chisel. This is a slick. One thing that you're going to notice immediately is that it is incredibly long. So here's that framing chisel by comparison. So this slick has no ring back here, and that's because this chisel is not meant struck. You're not going to hit this at all. In fact, this handle comes out. So this chisel is meant to be braced against your hip and pushed. So you're going to use the weight of your body to push this bevel into whatever wood that you're going to be removing. So this is also for bulk wood removal, but you can get down to really thin amounts of wood. Another interesting thing is that you're going to notice that this bevel is much steeper. So on slicks, you're going to be doing it for softwood, your bevel should be around 20 degrees with a secondary bevel of around 22 to 23 degrees. And then the same thing, if you're doing this for hardwood, it's going to be up by 5. So 25 degrees for primary bevel and your secondary around 27-28 degrees. Interesting thing that you'll notice is that the back of the chisel is completely flat, and then when you get to the socket, it's bent upward. And that's on purpose because you're going to be running this blade across the surface of the wood, whatever joint that you're creating. And if you have this chisel in pretty darn far, you don't want your hands or the socket to get in the way. So your hands are up here, and then the chisel is referencing the wood down here. By contrast, for a framing chisel, you only have about this amount of space before the socket gets in the way. And then the last big difference between a slick and a regular chisel is going to be the width. This framing chisel is 1.5 inches wide. By comparison, this slick is about 2 3/4 of an inch wide. So very different profiles. You also notice that this chisel is completely flat across. Not all slicks are like that. Some slicks have a sort of curvature to them, and that allows you to use less force to be able to remove the wood. Really, the way that I use it is I just turn the chisel to the side and I run it like that, just like you would a plane. So there's a couple schools of thought whether you actually even need a slick. Honestly, I'm gonna give you my honest opinion here, guys. I hardly ever take my slick out of my shed. I don't really use it very much. The reason is I just don't have time. This chisel does pretty much everything that I need it to do. And if I do need something to kind of flatten out a large surface area, I just use a plane. A jack plane is gonna do 90% of what that slick is gonna do, honestly, with less effort. And then usually I find myself switching back and forth between the two. I could just use this little framing chisel to do exactly what I need that slick to do. Choose for yourself whether you need a slick or not.